Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week, and we've got quite a few to get here, so strap yourselves in. Now, before I get going, I'd like to thank the following people that commented, linked, sent me, tagged me, messaged me with a lot of these breaches. It always helps me out. So Jason Dance, Tariq Khatib, David Walker, Barrett Peterson, and Chris Fallon. Guys, thank you very much. It always helps me out. And if you've got a tip for me, please feel free to get it to me, and I will give you a shout out as well. Now, with that, let's start in the UK and talk about the Sheffield City Council. Apparently, they have an automatic number plate recognition system, and that is exposing 8.6 million records of vehicle movements and journeys of the citizens in that area. Now, accessing this internal dashboard apparently was very simple. No authentication methods or credentials were actually required, and anybody could have basically viewed or browsed this live system with a simple copy-paste of the IP address that it was running on. Now, a representative from Sheffield City Council's South Yorkshire Police told the Register, and I quote, "We take joint responsibility for working to address this data breach. It is not an acceptable thing to have occurred. However, it is important to be very clear that to the best of our knowledge, nobody came to any harm or suffered any detrimental effects as a result of this breach." That is a very British way of saying that basically they have no proof that this data was used to harm anybody or sold on the dark web or anything like that. Time will tell. We shall see. Moving on, let's head on over to France and talk about Le Figaro. This is the largest newspaper in France. They expose roughly 7.4 billion records containing personally identifiable information on reporters and employees, as well as roughly 42,000 users. Now, the data exposed by an unsecured database owned by Le Figaro contained over 8 terabytes of data, which was publicly accessible because of a misconfigured Elasticsearch server. Le Figaro's site is the most viewed news site in France with an audience of more than 23 million monthly unique visitors. And so that is obviously a very huge thing. And so hopefully they'll get that cleaned up. Moving on, let's head on over to Indonesia and talk about Tokopedia. This is Indonesia's largest online store. Now, it leaked on Friday that the details of 15 million users registered on Tokopedia basically were exposed a couple of days ago. The hackers claim that the data was obtained in an intrusion that took place in March of 2020, and apparently this is just a small part of the site's entire user database that was obtained. In other words, the attackers leaked all of this out there, but it is only a fraction of what they had. Now, the leakers also said that they are sharing the 15 million users, a sample of the 15 million users, in the hopes that somebody could basically help crack these passwords and then get access to the user accounts. So the attackers are basically actively in the dark web looking for assistance to try to break into the hashed passwords, for this database. Now, the file was a Postgres database dump containing information such as full names, emails, phone numbers, hash passwords, dates of birth, and Tokopedia profile-related details such as account creation date, last login, email activation codes, password reset codes, location details, messenger IDs, hobbies, education, about me fields, and a whole lot more. So if you use Tokopedia, heads up to you in Indonesia. Moving on, we are just going to keep going around the world and head to Costa Rica because their state-owned bank, Banco BCR, basically got hit. Now, attackers claim to have gained access to their network and stole 11 million credit card credentials along with other data. The attack was allegedly conducted by the operators of the Maze ransomware gang, and these guys have been all over the news lately, so this is obviously a huge issue. Now, on their data leak site, on Maze's data leak site, the attackers claim to have gained access to Banco BCR's network in August of 2019, but did not proceed with encrypting the devices, basically until much later. Maze claims that the bank never secured their network once again, and then got access to it again in February of 2020. So hopefully Banco BCR will be able to clean that up, and that's a mess. So if you use them, heads up. Next, we're going to head down under and talk about our good friends in Australia. They have a department called Home Affairs, and they had a data breach revealing the personal detail of 774,000 immigrants and people aspiring to migrate to Australia, including partial names and outcomes of their applications. Now, searches by Guardian Australia revealed the public database contains 774,326 unique user IDs and 189,426 completed expressions of interest, meaning the form they're filling out, searchable as far back as 2014. Other information available includes the applicant's birth country, age, qualifications, marital status, and outcome of their application. So, if you've ever immigrated to Australia or attempted to, heads up to you. Moving on, let's head into the United States and go to Parkview Medical Center in Colorado. Now, attackers have infected the infrastructure of Parkview Medical Center, which is the largest health center in Pueblo County, Colorado, with cryptocurrency ransomware. Again, no honor among thieves. They're hitting hospitals. Citing a hospital employee, Fox News reported on April 24th that Meditech, the Park Medical Center system for storing patient information, was infected with ransomware and basically rendered inoperable. The hospital confirmed that incident in a statement. So hopefully Parkview will be back on their feet as soon as possible. The last thing we need is hospitals and medical centers to go down in the middle of a pandemic. Moving on, we're heading to Milwaukee. There's a company there called Civic Smart. Now, this is a firm that sells parking meters capable of processing mobile payments, as well as hardware and software used in enforcing parking rules and mobile apps used by motorists and government employees. So basically, if you're in some urban area and you're parking, odds are you might be using a Civic Smart parking meter and the respective app on your phone. They got hit last month, of course, because I'm talking about them, with a form of ransomware known as R-Evil or Sodion Binky, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sodion Ki Ibi, I think is how you pronounce it. I can never pronounce that one. I see it all the time. Now, messages posted to a website on which the attackers name their victims and leak stolen files basically suggested that Civic Smart pay an unspecified amount or they're going to have these files decrypted. Basically, they put out proof that they were able to attack and exfiltrate the data. So if you use Civic Smart, whether it's the app, the parking system as a customer or an employee, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Chegg. They're the massive online learning platform, and they just confirmed their third data breach in the past 3 years. Now, they basically said that attackers stole 700 current and former employee records, including their names and social security numbers. The company has more than 1,400 full-time employees at the start of this year. So that's about half of the company, excuse me, that just got hit. That is obviously a very serious issue. And Chegg, guys, you've got to get your security turned up. Moving on, we're going to head over to Massachusetts to Tom Berkowitz Trucking Incorporated. Now, this is apparently a family-owned trucking company, and they got hit with ransomware. So far, more than 781 megabytes of their data has been released on publicly accessible web pages, and this appears to be once again the Maze ransomware group. And so we'll see where this goes with this, but hopefully the damage won't be too bad, because I hate seeing small businesses, or any business for that matter, or anyone actually for that matter, getting hit. Moving on, let's talk about Execu Farm. This is a pharmaceuticals corporation. They got hit with ransomware on an incident that occurred on March 13th. Apparently, social security numbers, taxpayer IDs, driver's license numbers, passport numbers, bank account details, credit card numbers, NI numbers, and beneficiary information was all hit. So if you have anything to do with Execu Farm, heads up to you. Next up, we're going to be talking about Main Event. This is an entertainment and food venue. I think it's one of these places where you can get a decent meal and go bowling and play bocce ball and all that kind of stuff. There's one, I think 20 minutes from my house. I've never been there. They basically had some kind of data breach, and they have stated that they don't know how many customers were affected or who is responsible, and that is literally the only information I have. When I went looking for this, the only website that I could find was sitting there behind a paywall, and so here we are. But heads up, if you've eaten at or are employed with Main Event, or possibly a vendor of theirs in some way, you might be affected. That's all I can tell you at the moment. Moving on, let's head on back to the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. Now, the House of Lords actually failed to broadcast their proceedings live this past Wednesday, following some issues, and this is a very interesting and very specific data breach. Now, data breaches were cited after the mobile phone numbers of some members of the House of Lords were read out on Tuesday when they entered or exited their virtual session on Microsoft Teams. This is the app that they are using to basically have their meetings, do their meetings out to the public. And so as a consequence of this, the House of Lords said basically on Wednesday that it's not going to broadcast live because they don't want their personal phone numbers being exposed to the general public. That would be here in the United States, like, us getting all 50 senators, or all 50 or to one, well, actually we have 100 senators in 50 states is what I meant to say, is getting all 100 senators from 50 states, there we go, getting their phone numbers because they all just got them dumped on Microsoft Teams as they entered the meeting, open to the public. So House of Lords, there you go. Moving on, I'm going to give you an update on Zoom because Zoom has been on the news for last couple of weeks. I've done independent videos just on Zoom, but I want to bring you this because I think this is actually really important. The Zoom video conferencing platform obviously is super, super popular, but it could be vulnerable to intrusions by foreign government spy services, including China, according to a federal intelligence analysis obtained by ABC News. Now, the analysis urges organizations to carefully consider the risk if they decide to continue working with Zoom. The report was issued jointly by the Department of Homeland Security's Cyber Mission and Counterintelligence Mission Centers and was distributed to law enforcement and government agencies around the United States. Hackers, and I quote, likely will identify or use existing vulnerabilities in Zoom to compromise user devices and accounts for further exploitation of corporate networks. Now, even the security fixes that Zoom has put into place, and they've been racing to put those into place, we just saw Zoom 5.0 drop a couple of days ago, doesn't actually eliminate this concern, according to analysts, because, and I quote, the patching process is undermined by actors who often capitalize on delays and develop exploits based on the vulnerability and available patches. Meaning hackers or attackers, are going to keep developing vulnerability, basically mechanisms to bypass the vulnerabilities and get into possible Zoom meetings. Zoom obviously is not a fan of this, and they told ABC News that Zoom disagrees with this analysis and says that it is heavily misinformed, includes blatant inaccuracies about Zoom's operations, and the authors themselves admit only moderate confidence in their own reporting. So take it for what it's worth, but the United States intelligence is still not a fan of Zoom, and we've seen a lot of governments stop using them. And finally, we're going to be talking about a company called Jio, J-I-O, Now, they are India's largest cell network provider, although I am not going where you think I'm going with this, because Jio created a coronavirus symptom checker app. And now you know where I'm going with this. Apparently, a security error with Reliance Jio's coronavirus symptom checker app exposed its core database to the internet without a password. Now, the COVID-19 app, basically the checker app, was launched in late March by Jio, and this app allows users to check from their phones for COVID-19 infection. The security error was first observed by a security researcher on May 1st, who contacted TechCrunch and then notified the company. Now, TechCrunch contacted Reliance Jio and the database creators of this, basically to discuss this, and as a result, Jio took the database offline once they were contacted by TechCrunch. Now, the leaked database included millions of results starting from April 17th to the time it was taken offline. It includes details of users such as age, gender, symptoms, and health data of the people who signed in to create the profile. The database also contains details such as the person's user agent, person's precise location, assuming that they allowed the app to track the location, which is one of those security options that the app might have asked for initially, and most people just accept these things. And so based on the sample data that was obtained by TechCrunch, they were actually able to identify users' homes by simply plugging in the very precise GPS coordinates of the users. And I think what this speaks to overall is a very serious issue, because a lot of people obviously don't know if they've got this, think they've had it, have not been able to get a test, not just here, but worldwide. Obviously, some countries are handling this better than others, but this really speaks to a larger issue in the sense that if this gets out there, and let's say I'm in this database, and let's say it has been confirmed that I have the coronavirus, this may actually create a stigma for me in society. Because if it's out there and somebody puts that out there and says, oh my God, here's a complete data dump, avoid these people at all costs, now somebody's Googling me, whether it's a family member, a friend, a client, whatever that is, and oh, apparently, Nick Espinosa's had coronavirus, that could potentially be a very serious issue. The other thing that we have to talk about too is that most countries have very stringent security guidelines for medical privacy, and this is a massive violation. If this were to happen here in the United States, this would be a HIPAA violation to the tune of millions and millions of dollars that GEO would owe the US government and the regulatory bodies that cover this. I do not know India's precise health and privacy data, but I do know that with India's burgeoning tech sector, they have been racing to create privacy laws that are keeping up with the GEOs of the world. So that is a huge issue. We have to be very sensitive with protected health information, especially when we're in the middle of the pandemic. And that's why it's the very last thing I'm talking about here. Please be kind to each other, and hopefully we'll get through this okay. And if somebody does have the coronavirus, understand at some point it's going to go away and they're not going to get you infected. And I think a lot of people, just given the amount of information on every side of this that's out there, some people don't necessarily understand that. And so we've seen some stigmas grow up simply, around the globe, whether it's due to culture or race or anything like that. I think we all need to step back and take a breather from this, because quite frankly, I don't care where you are, who you're from, or what you're doing. We're all in this together, and hopefully we never forget that. And those are your breaches of the week. Were you affected? Let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.